Okay, hello. I am your host, Dave Schneier. This is the Schneier Show, Mac. Today we have on here a very special guest, Jackson Hitchcock, who is running an independent campaign for president of these United States of America, Mac. So, Jackson, tell us why are you running for president?
Well, I'd just like to thank both you and Cameron for allowing me to be on your show tonight. And I'd like to answer your question, why I'm running, is because that over the past 8 years, we've had consistent job and wage growth in these United States. And the answer is not protectionism to bring our nation to just that next level of um uh, of success, but we need to advocate for free trade and we need to advocate for technology. I know many people hate the buzzword free trade, but they really don't understand that NAFTA, the big bad trade deal, led to the creation of over 5 million jobs and only the loss of 500,000. It was great for the US's GDP, and it created the first real wage growth in 40 years. Now, I'm also running for president because we need to get our ideas out there. Now, what kind of person could I be if I wanted people to do my ideas, and I wasn't willing to say them myself? Now, I'm running for president to bring change to Washington. My opponent, whether you like him or not, I like him personally, but he's a bit of a Washington insider type. I know how everyone hates that label, and Mick, and will call me a slanderer and a bigot and a half dozen other slurs.
Yeah. So, Jackson, another question that a person requested me to ask: who is your VP?
Well, that's a kind of complicated topic at this point. I don't really have a vice presidential candidate. If when I hopefully when I win this election, I'll have over 270 electors, and I would urge them to vote for either. I'd urge them to vote uncommitted, and then I would go into my presidency, nominate a vice president to the Senate, and then allow the Senate to choose who my vice president would be. And I believe that I have a few candidates in mind currently, but I have no firm answer to that question. I don't currently have a vice presidential candidate.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah,
Jackson,
you can go.
what is this presidential run? Why is this presidential run different from all your others?
Well, see, this presidential run is different from the others because I'm not acting at this point. I'm not acting as if I'm a conservative demagogue like I have in the past. I'm acting like myself. I'm advocating for what I truly do believe in the heart, and I have legislation to back that up when I'm elected. I'm not going to propose any off the wall legislation. I'll be proposing legislation that really brings change and well, not change because we've had change in the past, and the Easton promised change. That didn't work. Nathan is promising change. How do we know that'll work too? I'm promising proven values that have worked in the past.
So
I'm
you're
proposing.
saying, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm proposing things that will work and will help expand the economy and help bring about less inequality. We need to go to Central America, and we need to give them more aid. We need to stabilize these nations. We're not going to put troops on the ground. We're going to give the elected governments aid, and we're not going to overthrow any more governments because they were elected by the people and they're working for the people. The reason Central America is such a mess is because of our actions in the region. I'm advocating for a full reverse, a 180, and making Central America not a region where we get involved in every whoop nan and skippity doo, a region where we change our values and we make it look like we're working towards a brighter future for the region, which will lead to less migrants, less immigration, and an expansion of trade and an expansion of quality of living for these people in Central America.
Okay, so
Now,
you said,
would you?
can I ask this one question?
Mhm.
So sorry. So Jackson, you said that you're acting as a conservative previously. So what would you say your actual ideology you say would be, and where do you think you lean on the political spectrum?
Neoliberal, and then the green square. You know the green square in the political compass, that one. Like I'm like a John. I'd compare myself to a John Kerry-esque neoliberal.
You claim to be a center populist in a
Center
text-
populist to John Kerry type neoliberal. Yes.
Yeah, those are like kind of opposite though.
No, not really, because
John Kerry's not a populist. That's a fact. We can verify that.
well, John Kerry doesn't self-identify as a populist, but I see very many of his policies are semi-populist. Protectionism in itself is a populist policy, but really, free trade is something that'll help the populace more.
Well, here's the thing. I would like to talk to you. Two questions I'm going to ask you. First of all, what exactly are your trade? Well, I'll go ahead and ask you this first. What are your trade policies?
Well, I believe in a gradual decrease in tariffs until we can reach an economy with. Are you familiar with the EU economic zone?
Yes.
An economy such as that among North American states, and then later branching out into including the European states and the entire world eventually. This is coupled with open borders, which will allow free movement of peoples between the nations of Mexico, Canada, and the United States, which will increase productivity and allow for money to easily flow between the three countries, which will increase standard of living here, there, and above us. We need open trade, open elections, we need free trade, free elections, free people, and free seas. Like free, as in like free waterways.
I understand.
Yes. So my trade policy is to keep working with these nations to not integrate us, but make it easier for people to go between our nations, which will lead to an increase in spending with our small businesses. It will lead to more consumer power because it will allow our consumers to buy things for lower prices, while it will also create labor demand because those immigrants, they'll be spending money in America, and which will allow prices to go down and wages to go up. It's this thing called immigration labor pricing or something of the such.
Now I would like to ask you two more questions because I have a busy schedule tonight. So I would like to ask you two more questions. Well, yeah, I'll ask two questions, and then Cameron can ask two questions, and then we'll wrap this up. So my two questions are: how would you have responded to different? How are you gonna? What is your China policy? Yeah, what's your China policy?
Free trade with China will allow our
well, no, like the foreign policy specifically, because you remember, QJ moved our troops from the South China Sea, I mean, our navy from the South China Sea. How would you respond to what's going on in China?
Well, moving our I prefer it to be called the East Sea because the South China Sea is the name given by the Chinese government.
Okay.
So the East Sea is the one agreed upon by our allies in Japan and South Korea. So.
What does that stand for? I'm not familiar with that term. My bad.
I'll send you a link to the Wikipedia article.
Okay. So how would you respond to what's going on there, though?
Well, we really shouldn't have moved our troops from the area. Our ships in the South China Sea play a crucial role in our defense of the Koreas, Japan, and the Republic of China from aggression from the mainland and North Korea. So if we removed our troops, now that won't allow for our aircraft carriers to launch an effective response in case of a North Korean or Chinese attack on our allies in the region. So I believe that we should move I believe it's the 8th Fleet to their permanent home in a Japanese port on the southern tip of the islands, where they have ample access to the seas of Japan and the East China Sea. This will allow them to strike at North Korean as yes. One moment.
Something wrong?
We're having a commercial
Yeah, one
break
moment.
for the. We're having a commercial break now. Let's see. What a good.
Can I just ask him a
But
question
he
then?
isn't here. We're doing a commercial break.
Let me ask
Doing a
Jackson.
commercial break though. Here, commercial break. Buy Zevia soda. It's tasty and it's made from a plant. It's really good stuff. Good stuff. This is the commercial break. This advertisement is not endorsed or paid for by Zevia.
Ugh.
Jackson, are you back? Oh, okay, Cameron. Wait, is this Cameron or Jackson?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here.
Oh, okay. Let's wait till Jackson comes back.
Cameron.
You know something, Jackson? I'm gonna have to end this. This is okay. Hey, Jackson, are you back?
Okay, here we are. Sorry, I just had to deal with something.
Oh, yeah, that's okay. That's okay. So Jackson, I guess we'll just move on to my other question, and that is, what's your tax plan?
Okay, my tax plan is to do a whole overhaul of the land value tax. The founder of the land value tax in my collection is Jonna Superfeld. He'll be one of my top economic advisors, and will be the current number is around $7.5 trillion, and we believe that those numbers are hyped up a little bit and we believe that the current budget should be around 4.5 billion or 4.8 billion, which would put us at around a 200
billion or trillion?
Trillion, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I misspoke. But yes, it put us at about a $200 billion deficit. And so we're going over the numbers currently, and we're looking at what we can cut to bring us to a balanced budget.
Okay. Okay, Cameron, you can ask some questions now, Cameron.
Excuse me.
Okay, so Jackson, what is your of course there bill? I'll talk about a border wall. Would you be against or for a border wall, and what's your plan for border security?
Well, as
on
you
the
know,
southern border?
as you know, my plan for border security with our southern border is to open up the borders. We need open borders between Canada, the United States, and Mexico. Much like the European Union, it will increase trade. These immigrants will spend money in America because they can't get products in Mexico or Canada, and we will bring prices down for Americans because we'll be able to import more things. We'll bring prices down for Canadians and Mexicans, which will help reduce poverty. More immigrants will spend more money here, which will raise wages and raise job demand, which will lower unemployment and in turn lower poverty even more. And we will help raise the standard of living in Canada and in Mexico. And we will also lower crime on our southern border because there will be less illegal immigration. Well, there will be no illegal immigration from Mexico because of the open border policy. So open borders really are a net positive for the nation. I really haven't seen any negatives with open borders other than some right-wing scare attempt at saying that it'll destroy our culture because there will be immigrants who bring in new ideas and help innovate and create new technology in the United States. In 2016,
but America's already one of the most progressive societies on Earth, though, so I don't think we need ideas from like a third world country to make our country more progressive.
Do you know who coined the term third world country?
Yeah.
Mao Zedong.
Okay.
He was referring to three worlds. One, the developed world. where is consisting of the superpowers. The second world is consisting of the developing powers. And then there's the third world, which is consisting of those who are like the impoverished nations. So in 2016, all 6 of our Nobel Prize winners were born outside the United States. All 6 of them. We have by far the
But what did
most
you say the
Nobel Prizes
second
of
world
all of them.
consisted of?
But in 2016, none of them were born in the United States, but they were Americans.
What did you say the second world consisted of?
The second world consists of those developing nations. Think of India, Brazil, etc. South Africa, many of the BRICS nations. I think I wouldn't put China in that category anymore.
Well, China's definitely probably first world, I would consider.
Yeah, I would consider them a superpower nation. But I believe that America and China are really the only first world nations. I think that term is way overused in terms of like which nations are first world nations.
Yeah.
Okay, do you see who do you see as which neighbor, like Canada and everything?
Say again.
Which neighbor do you see as more important, trade and like everything, like defense and everything wise? Mexico or Canada?
Which one's what defense wise?
Like no, which do you see as like which all around?
Well, I definitely have to say currently it has to be Mexico. Mexico has a much bigger population than Canada. While it doesn't have the same standard of living yet, it's rapidly industrializing, it's rapidly growing, and it's a big player in Central and Southern American politics. It's I believe it's almost a fifth of our population is Spanish speaking. So they all many of our
No, I mean like in terms of the U.S., which is like more important to the U.S.
Definitely Mexico. Mexico has a lot of trade with the United States. I believe they're one of our biggest trading partners. U.S. biggest trading partners include Russia, include China, Japan, South Korea. Mexico is the third biggest trading partner, but really, Mexico brings a lot to the United States. They bring a diverse culture. You don't hear people talking about, oh yeah, I want to go get some Canadian food. They say, I want to go get some Mexican food. So Mexico just is ingrained into our culture as a nation. Well, Canada is our.
Then you haven't tried Canadian food then, because everyone loves Canadian food. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah,
Well, I'm sure. I do love some poutine.
Oh, I hate when people say that way. I hate when people say.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I know you're not. I know you're no Quebecer. But yes, Mexico is definitely our closest neighbor. I would say Canada is close, but Mexico is just so ingrained into our culture, it's unreal. So we need to focus on building up our relationship with Mexico, because Mexico in 15, 20 years, maybe, can be a top flight power. It could be one of the richest nations in the world, and it could also be one of the fastest growing. That's why I also have a plan to develop our relationship with Sub-Saharan Africa, because those nations are exploding. Their growth is enormous. So we really need to focus on getting the Chinese and catching the Chinese and making sure that we don't lose out on Africa, because we won out in Eastern Europe and we took over, and we have great allies in many of those countries: Poland, the Czech Republic, Czechia, and the Ukraine, along with Romania, etc. Many of the Soviet states, along the Baltics. So we need to make Africa the new fighting ground. It is the fighting ground. We need to invest in Sudan, Ethiopia, Somalia, Burkina Faso, etc.
No, I do agree with you on that.
Sorry.
Yeah, I would like to go into. I would like to go in some more.
No, wait. Can I ask a question first? What's your opinion on the Meki one?
I think it's a pretty good idea. The UN in real life is a very solid proposal. It's a very solid organization.
It is, yeah.
As
They don't really stop any wars.
president, how would you at if you're president, how would you interact with the Prime Minister of Canada? And then we actually enter
What?
Prime Minister of the UK.
Please say again.
If you became president, how would you interact with the Prime Minister of Canada and the UK who just recently entered?
I would try and bring them into a further economic union, and we would definitely increase trade with these nations. And I know President Lewis is working on a free trade bill with the United Kingdom. So I definitely look into expanding our influence in trade with these nations, because it'll introduce, I think there's around, correct me if I'm wrong, 90 million citizens in the United Kingdom, and that would explode the amount of consumers our goods can reach and explode the amount of growth our economy can reach.
Yes, let me fact check that for you. 66 million.
Oh, yeah. Well, the nations combined make up like 111, so close enough.
What nations? No, I'm talking about the whole nations of what combined?
Canada and the United Kingdom.
Oh yeah.
Do either of you have any questions?
No. If you have any more closing statements, I think that's. Well, I would like to show you one thing that I would like to show you one thing just before we end this, just so the viewers. Now, this is based on most recent poll data done by Ricky News. We got a little bit of it from Ricky News, some of it from our news company ourselves, some of it from our private contractor Grover News. But here's the. Based on the polling, this is the election map. So we have a Joe 13 landslide here. Y'all can see this map, right?
You're very funny.
This is based on recent polling.
So
I'd
just like to ask,
hopefully you can get more electoral votes than that. We'll see how this election goes.
I'd just like to know who that polls from, because
yeah.
Do you have the evidence from Grover News?
Grover just does independent polls. He doesn't from PM and different sources. He averages them out and stuff.
I heard that. I find that difficult.
But it was nice having you on, Jackson.
I think we've got a great chance to win tonight and tomorrow. I've been hearing great things about our support across the nation, and I'll be rallying supporters in a few different cities tonight. If I have time, I'll try and make a post. But we really need to focus on bringing out support in rural Midwestern communities in Pennsylvania, Ohio, Indiana, Michigan, Wisconsin. Wisconsin's key for the campaign. We also need to bring out support in New England. We need to hit Nathan hard in the Bible Belt, and we need to take Texas. As Texas goes in this case, as goes the nation.
Thank you. Okay. Well, it was nice to have you on.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Cameron.
One more thing before you go.
Remember, election night, everyone, make sure you go vote.
Yes, go vote. One more thing, Jackson. Will you concede the election if you lose?
If I lose, which I don't think I will concede the election, because I'm not one for pessimism, but I really do think that I have a great chance tonight. We, the American people, and I'm fighting this election for those in Maine, Mainers, Nebraskans, Oregon, Washingtonians, Montanans, even Alaskans.
Are you naming every single state?
No, only like 12 of them. Only the swing states. Yeah, thanks for having me on, Dave. It's been great talking to you, Cameron.
You don't care about the other. So you don't care about the other states. You don't care about the other states. Then? Okay, I see how it is. Just listen.
Oh, and Ontario. Ontario is the best state.
Okay. Well, we're gonna have to disagree with you there, but we have to go now. So it was nice having you on, Jackson. You're welcome anytime. If you
subscribe to Daily Leaf News.
Yes, and Jackson, if you ever need a job,
Daily Leaf
we have a job for you right here. So
well,
okay.
I hope I won't need a job. I hope I'll have one for the next 8 years.
Yeah. Well, see you, Jackson. Okay. Well, this is it for the Schneider Show. Mac, there's a different Schneider Show, but we don't talk about that here. Please give this video a like and please subscribe.